The official story on 9/11 is a complete lie. The 9/11 report is a joke.
You have the CIA following two men all over the planet and then eventually even to America, right? And you don't tell the FBI. 9/11 Commission, the cover up.
So what did happen? What did the government know? What did foreign governments know? There was a cover up. Why? It's been nearly 25 years. It is time Americans learned what actually happened. We're going to tell you, we're releasing one episode per week. You're not going to want to wait. If you're a member, you don't have to. You get all 5 episodes the day it drops, right then, ad-free. Our first episode airs Thursday, 9/11, September 11th. You will not want to miss it. Join us now at tuckercarlson.com.
So Tucker Carlson's asking questions about 9/11, and I think it's long overdue.
The network is getting a lot of attention, so much so that Piers Morgan interviewed him today just to ask some questions and to challenge what many believe are simply crazy conspiracy theories among conspiracy theorists in regard to what took place on 9/11. I don't know what I personally believe. Obviously, this hasn't been published yet, but I thought that this conversation, this exchange between Piers Morgan and Tucker Carlson was fascinating. And we're gonna just give you a few highlights. Please watch the entire conversation for yourselves. But before I get into it, Cenk, any initial thoughts?
Well, before I never entertained the idea that 9/11 was anything but what the government said. And so I was like, what did they make the planes disappear? They get willing to kill everybody on the planes. It all sounds absurd. So I now think that I have seen the government do so many terrible things repeatedly and cover up for it repeatedly that I am no longer sure.
For Cenk, Uyghur, I can only ask how you made it to this age with that much trust in the government. How did you make it to this age, to this level of media prominence, and just now see the government do enough terrible stuff? All the Tonkin, Tuskegee experiments, Operation Northwoods. Your government, at least over the last century, has a history of doing really terrible things for their own interests, really terrible things to the American people. So I really don't know where he derived all that faith.
Huge parts of the 9/11 story were left out of the commission report. For example, what happened to Building 7, which was not only not next to the Twin Towers, which are hit by airplanes, but had a building in between itself and those buildings, collapsed that afternoon for reasons that no one has been able to explain since. You're not a lunatic for asking. There is no there's no plausible explanation for how that building collapsed.
So that's the issue at play here, that I wanted to give you that portion of what Tucker Carlson had to say. And Piers Morgan attempts to explain it to some extent by providing what he feels is a similar example of another building, like just melting away similarly to Building 7. Yeah.
Before we go to that clip, Anna, I just want to say this story broke today. I didn't know that was going to be the first topic. And for all the times that I had this conversation with Ben and a million other people, I would always say, look, guys, I get everything, and I'm not a physicist. I don't know how the plane could hit or couldn't hit or could crash or couldn't crash. I got no expertise on that.
So the thing about Building 7 beyond that is, it's weird that it collapsed. It doesn't make any sense. Look at what was inside of that building. One of those floors was owned by the IRS, and another floor was rented out, owned, whatever, by the CIA. It was full of documents, full of criminal documents, like evidence of white-collar crimes committed by these corporations and CEOs and everything. And all of that just burned up. All the evidence is gone. No one can be prosecuted. Awfully convenient. Awfully convenient.
Not like, whatever, shut up, you're a conspiracy theorist, and you should never get any real answers. So the reason I interrupted you.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm quite sure the earth is round. I don't think that we're descended from some lost civilization, Atlantis BS. I don't think that there's aliens living under the ground. I don't believe in Bigfoot. Like, I am a pretty straightforward person. And if you look at 9/11 in a straightforward manner, there's no way. There's no way there weren't elements of the US government complicit in that. It's literally impossible. And these guys are like, oh yeah, now this has got me thinking and stuff. Just wait. Just wait.
Because I'm super curious what Piers Morgan's gonna say, because I've literally never heard a proper explanation for it, even when I believe 9/11 100%.
Well, let's go
the
to Piers
official
Morgan.
story.
Let's see what he had to say.
If you look into the investigation into Tower 7, the findings of the investigation into it were that the North Tower, when it came down, had set off a load of fires in Building 7. And it was a steel structure and shouldn't have gone down, but it did. That these fires burned all afternoon, and I think it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon or something. The tower eventually gave way to the welter of fires raging inside it, and it was the only time that had happened to a structure that was built in that way. However, there has been another tower very similar to that in structure, which has since gone down in Tehran. So it's no longer the only one. In other words, there is another example of a tower like that collapsing.
Okay, so you can see Tucker Carlson smiling in response to what Piers Morgan is saying, probably because, okay, well, if you want to make that argument that the fire was so hot that it led to the collapse of Building 7, well, what happened to the building in between, right? And nothing happened to that building. And so I want to give Tucker an opportunity to respond to that, and then we can discuss.
What is the alternative explanation? I mean, if you're examining another theory other than the one that the investigation concluded was simply that the North Tower came down, fires were set off in Tower 7, and then it eventually collapsed. What is the other theory which we should give more credence to?
I don't know. I don't know that the onus is on me or anyone who seeks the truth about what happened to come up with an alternative theory. The onus is on federal authorities to explain why, for example, they never investigated it. Why, for example, the rubble and the steel from that building was carted off within hours and sent out of the country to Asia. Why, for example, an analysis done not by kooks, but by chemists found traces of explosive material in the dust from that day. Why structural engineers who have kind of no skin in this game came to the conclusion that that just couldn't happen based on all available evidence. And that none of that is addressed at all or even mentioned in the 9/11 report. So, and there are all kinds of anomalies, as I know that you're fully aware, and there are possible explanations to explain all of them. For example, the BBC report on air saying the building had fallen when it hadn't fallen yet.
He's right about that BBC report, and Pierce later says that the BBC report was based on an erroneous report by Reuters. Okay.
Okay, that doesn't explain anything. Then how did Reuters know the building was going to collapse before?
I got a better question for you. How did Alex Jones know in July of 2001? Because you can still find the footage online. As far as I know, the last time I checked, it's still up, of him from his live broadcast online back in way back in the summer of 2001, July. I can't remember the exact date. Him telling the American people, his audience, that there was going to be an attack on the Twin Towers with airliners. Literally said this in July of 2001. He told his viewers to contact their congressman to let them know that if this event took place, that they, members of the American people, knew what happened, knew that the American government was complacent in the attack. Like, they're blown away, or they're questioning, rather. They're over here starting to really think because of a false Reuters, supposedly false Reuters report, shortly before the collapse, the day of, after the attack had took place, but shortly before the collapse. Take a look at Alex Jones's announcement 2 months before the attack.
Got hit.
Exactly. Yeah.
So look, I don't know those
details. We don't know. Okay. And like, I'm very interested to watch this docuseries and the claims that it makes. I was super young when 9/11 happened. I was in high school. And the thought of, this being a big conspiracy was ridiculous to me. It didn't even cross my mind. I was a child, okay? But revisiting this now, I do have a lot of questions.
All right, folks. So there you have it. Tucker Carlson out here asking questions that a lot of us have been asking for the last 20 years. Even got TYT thinking now. There's just too much surrounding 9/11 that doesn't make sense. And if you're the type of person that can't fathom their own government, or especially the United States government, doing something like sacrificing 3,000 of its own citizens to justify a war, you should really, I really implore you to go just Google Operation Northwoods. Really simple. Operation Northwoods. It's probably what got JFK smoked. Operation Northwoods is a documented attempt at a plan by CIA, other elements of our government to wage false flag terror campaigns against the United States populace. And JFK said no. He shut it down. And then he conveniently, went the way of the dodo. So I'm pretty stoked about all this. I've been pretty quiet myself about it because so few people have seemed to care or seem to be willing to accept the fact that governments do terrible things to their own people to justify, you know, ends, means to an end. That's all it is to them. And to think that the government is incapable of that is naive, truly and utterly naive. Unless you trust people wholeheartedly, just flat out, that is your default position, is to trust people, which is also extremely naive. It doesn't make sense to trust the government. The government is simply an organization comprised of people. And most certainly, some of them, if not most of them, are going to be kind of shitty, especially when you consider how cutthroat a game politics is. Generally speaking, the most cutthroat are going to rise to the top. So to expect that these people would be beyond such actions, it's utterly naive. And I would ask you to grow up and look at the government for what it is, an organization comprised of people that are fully capable of evil, and then consider the fact that they have all the power in the world, and power corrupts.